Okay, for the science portion, I had the students draw a scientist of their choice. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's a girl or boy. And I had them write down some words that would describe what a scientist does or could be doing, right? Well, what is a scientist? It's a person who records, it's a person who does experiments, observes, guesses, asks questions, measures, sorts, and classifies. There are 100 other words that could describe what a scientist is or does, but these were just some of the few words that we chose as a class. So you can pause the video, copy this down in your science journal or science spiral. Now, in your science fusion, okay, this is the science textbook that you got. We are actually going to be focusing on page 3. Okay, so it should say page 3 at the bottom. And pages 4 and 5. Now, I did have the kids look through pages, the first few pages, to see if there were any vocabulary, and so far we did find two. Sorry about that. We did find 2 words: observe and infer. Okay, so they just went through the first few pages to see if there were any highlighted words, and they wrote them down at the beginning. All right, so let's see. How is this student acting like a scientist? Well, it looks like this student is actually observing something, right? In this case, it's a butterfly. All right. What is science? Science is about Earth and everything beyond it. What does a scientist look like? To find out, take a look in the mirror. As you read these 2 pages, underline the main idea. So main idea is what the story is mostly about. Why do volcanoes erupt? Well, this is a question that, is something that we sometimes can guess or think of, or we might have questions about nature. So it says ask a question. You can ask questions too. Write a question of your own about the natural world that you could answer by doing a descriptive investigation. It says, how big is a meteor? Now, these questions that I wrote down are actually from your classmates who wanted to integrate nature, but at the same time ask, a question that maybe would be cool to investigate. So somebody said, how big is a meteor? And how hot is lava? Maybe you can come up with a question too. And for 5, here we go. Science is a way of looking at the world and thinking about it. When you think like a scientist, you ask questions about the world around you. You can try to answer your questions by doing different types of investigations. Some investigations are simple, such as watching animals play. Other investigations take planning. You need to gather and set up materials, then you write down what happens. You can think like a scientist on your own or in a group. Sharing what you learn is a part of fun, so get started. There are 2 questions here. One of them says, why does a compass point north? And the other one says, what do stars look like through a telescope? Well, stars are actually made up of gas, right? They're actually a ball of gas, but through a telescope, they look like bright lights. And then why does a compass point north? The needle that is in the compass is actually attracted heavily to the magnetic poles that are in the earth. but that is a question and a topic for another day. In this case, well, what is the main idea between what we just learned from pages 4 and 5? What is science, right? Well, science is a way of looking at the world and thinking about it. So I would say science is a way of looking at the world and thinking about it. So this is basically what we went over for Monday. We just introduced what a scientist is or does, and what is science. How different do we look at science than we do when we go outside, or when we think of a question about nature, or whatever have you. So just keep in mind that a lot of the times being a scientist involves planning, okay, gathering materials if you want to do an experiment, writing down what happens, observing, thinking. It involves a lot of things, but it can also be very fun. So stay tuned for the next few days. We'll be posting up on here the rest of the lesson.